Hi, you guys. It's me, Ozone Ocean, with this week's review. Yay! Just kidding. That wasn't Ozone Ocean, everybody.
Hello and welcome to Quackcast 287. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is the lovely, beautiful, charming Pitface. Hello, Pitface.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here today.
Damn it, that's Tance. I got the name mixed up.
How are you?
I'm very good, Tance Serene. Sorry I called you Pitface. That's unforgivable of me. You must feel so insulted.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it, Tance. Well, would you like to have Baines on instead? You know, your alter ego, because we all should know that Baines and Tance are basically the same person.
It's all true. I'm here.
It's all true.
I just changed my hat.
Take off that attractive Greek bonnet you were wearing and put on the big furry Canadian toque.
Exactly. Well said. Everything you just said. Absolute.
I finally remember the name of that thing. All right. Well, see, the topic of this Quackcast is evoking emotion in your readers.
Yes,
evoke. Yeah, having emotion evoked from comics. You know, how do you do it? What are some of the mistakes, the ineffective methods? You know, what's the best way to evoke emotion? What emotions can you evoke in a comic? Can you evoke all the emotions? Maybe there's some you can't. Let's have a check. Do a quick test. But before we get into that, we've got to do the featured comic, which is a comic I picked, and I was very happy to be able to pick it because it had lovely art and it looks really cool. It's called Krasnovit, and it's by Mad Mind Inc., rated E, Krasnovit, and it's a Ukrainian fairy story. Very well drawn, beautifully illustrated.
It really is. It's gorgeous. Yeah, really nice art.
So take it away, Ozone Ocean. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my featured comic for the week was Krasnovit. A well-dressed young prince stalks his way into the dark, forbidding forest in search of the house with the rooster legs. He's come to beg a favour from the forest witch, but what will it be? Will she grant his request? At what cost? Krasnovit is a retelling of a traditional Ukrainian folktale in all its charming glory. A historical fantasy, it's rendered in loving detail by Mad Mind Inc. The digital colouring is fine and streamlined. The art is intricate and pretty. The writing is mainly expressed through the images of the comic, which only has minimal dialogue, but the art is very clear in its intent, so it doesn't need more than it uses. I highly recommend Krasnovit, just to follow it and work out the mystery of the egg and what's going to happen, and will the prince get rewarded in the way that he wants? Or will the forest witch double-cross him somehow, as usually happens in these kind of stories? You know, people don't quite get what they want. It's interesting to see, and the artwork is so beautiful and pretty. It's all historical. It gives you a very interesting historical look at the peasant life, and also some of the royalty of old Ukraine. So I hope you enjoy it. Krasnovit by Mad Mind Inc., rated E. And that was Ozone Ocean with his introduction to the comic Krasnovit. So, next up, we have the featured music by Mr. Gun Wallace, and Gun Wallace has given us the music for Desperately Departed. It's by Nathan Gibson and Steve Garnett. So there's a team of people working on Desperately Departed. It has colourful art. The creator describes it as a man finds himself in a post-apocalyptic world alone with no bodies, no signs of struggle, just an empty world and he's struggling with an addiction to alcohol, and he learns to cope with no one but an imaginary ghost at his side who he calls Nora. So that's Desperately Departed. It sounds weird, but it...
Cool. Yeah, and they are cool-looking creatures in it. Absolutely.
They are. So the music for this is atmospheric, it's heavy, it's threatening, it's revealing. It reminds me of a heat shimmer on a wide desert landscape vista. So take it away, Mr. Gun Wallace. And that was Gun Wallace's music. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Gun Wallace. Mr. David Tulloch. You did a fine performance. So...
Bravissimo.
Oh, I didn't mean to tread on you. What was that?
No problem. No, all good. Go ahead. Bravo. Bravissimo, I said.
Bravissimo. So, now we have the topic of this week's Quackcast, which is evoking emotion or having emotions evoked from comics. So there are a lot of ways to do that in a story. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it in a film, in, like in a radio play, in a comic, in a book.
Yeah.
There's certain ways that are specific to comics that you can't do in films and other things, or you have to do in comics because you can't do them the way you will do them in films. I mean, you can't have atmospheric music in a comic, even though you would love to have that, because that's such a shortcut to evoke emotion, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, sounds and obviously, yeah, music for sure. Time doesn't exist in comics. I don't know if that's a drawback for evoking emotion, but yeah, definitely the music thing can be done well. It can be a crutch in movies sometimes. You see it done badly at times, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So in comics you have to do things the hard way. So pros do comics, amateurs do films, real basically.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
We do it like the hard. We have to learn how to tell stories in pictures and scenes, and like we have to learn pacing. So if we can evoke emotion, wow, that's a hard job. Really
Yay
is.
us!
Yeah, pat yourself on the back. Oh, just whack the microphone. So yeah,
I mean, the first way that comes to my mind is, just the facial expressions on your characters, right? If it's a character that people relate to, if you relate to them, you're rooting for them, you kind of know them on at least somewhat, then you go with them. You take the emotional journey that they're taking at whatever given moment. So you see if they're sad, you feel for them, hopefully.
That's a good point. Yeah, so the facial expressions, that's one big basic way. Facial and related to that, body language, but a lesser thing, because body language is harder to depict in a comic, and mainly you're focused on faces, not body language in comics. It's the faces are the main thing. And plus, you have to be a lot more skilled to do body language.
I'm sorry. Go. We had a delay.
You have to be a lot more skilled to do good body language. So faces are an easier thing to do.
Yes.
And that's what most people focus on when they draw and when they look at comics. If you're a really good artist, then you can, get the whole thing in there, but yeah.
Yeah, you can have the head bowed. You can have the hands folded. Or you can have, whatever. Body language indicates happiness. I don't know.
Yeah, jumping up and down, waving your arms in the air, normal things you do when you're happy.
Yeah.
Really Kermit the Frog it,
And then there's context, obviously. Like if people do care about the character, like they want them to do well, and they don't want them to be in peril. So you fear for the character, you feel bad for them. It's all of that. Like if the character is challenged in some way, or suffering in some way, or faces something really bad, depending on the context of the story, that could be heartbreak or a life and death kind of situation. Then you go for that ride with them. That's a script writing thing.
Oh yeah, of course. Pathos. That's an important thing. Whether you feel sympathy for the character, or you don't feel anything at all. You think the character is pathetic. So you can cross that line. You have to be careful with that, don't you?
What would the line be like?
Well, have you ever seen Neon Genesis Evangelion?
I know of it. Haven't seen it.
Well, that's a story that famously has this whiny nerd of a character called Shinji Ikari, who's the main character, and he's in a bit of a Hamlet situation in that he is unsure whether he should act, and he doesn't really want to, take the steps that he should, and man up, so to speak, and be the hero. He's too nervous. He's too scared. And that could go one way. You could sympathise with him and you think, oh, the poor guy, that's such a hard thing for him to do. I feel for him. But because they lay it on so thick, almost no one does sympathise with him, and everybody pretty much universally thinks of him as a wimp. And,
fans.
What's that?
You mean universally you're talking about the readers, the audience?
Yeah.
Not the other characters. Wow, okay.
Well, some of the other characters, they as well react that way. Some of them react with sympathy, and you think, why? Why would you be sympathetic to this person? You agree with the other characters who say he's pathetic. He is pathetic. There's nothing redeeming about him at all.
That's what's tough about that passive main character, man. I mean, it's like, I don't know why so many of we writers fall into that. I definitely do too. But yeah, like one of the big things that they say about writing is like, watch out for the passive character.
Oh, really?
People so easily hate them. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So you really go on a razor's edge sort of thing when you do that. You have to.
Yeah, but if some people are, not everybody is active. So I mean, it's not like never do it.
Yeah,
I
mean, try to make a likable passive character.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll never forget this book, and I've brought it up before over the years on the Quackcast. and I don't remember the title, but I hated it so much, so I wouldn't look up the title anyway. But it's about this woman who's sort of betrayed by her husband, and she goes on this. She's the most passive main character I've ever read. It was a novel, and she just is just put through all this suffering by her husband, and you're supposed to feel bad for her. And then in the end, I think whatever happens. And then at the end, she's betrayed by him again. Like she just gets more and more like self-pitying kind of, and more hurt. And at the end of the book, she kills herself. And I got to the end of the book where she killed herself, and I was mad because that's a kind of a, I don't know, that too is a risky thing to do in a piece of fiction, you know. But I was on another level. I was also like, good. I'm glad. Hated that character. Like, what a wimp. Like, die. Go, do it. Plunge your head into that oven or whatever she did.
Yeah, I've definitely read books like that where you come and you think you lose sympathy for the character, and then you're just rooting for them to kill themselves. You think just kill yourself. Yeah, it'll be all ended then.
Yeah,
it'll be all over.
I'll be satisfied with that. Just kill yourself.
It's awful, but that's what happens with these characters.
Yeah.
You think, I've got no more sympathy to give you. Definitely, the character in The Hunger, by the end of that story, becomes so pathetic, and you think, you idiots. just kill yourself for something. Your pride's not worth it anymore. No one cares about you at all. No one would even miss you now. Everybody obviously hates you for good reason. Just give it up, man.
Yeah. Like, you didn't even try, you loser. Just jump off a building.
So, yeah, as you say, passive characters, it's hard. And sympathy, so that's an emotion you have to be careful with. You can't abuse it. Don't abuse your audience's ability to give sympathy, because they've only got so much to give. And they have to really care. You can't keep on layering on tragedy on a character.
That's a great point. I think that's a huge one. You know, like, and that applies also to comedy and any other emotion, really. Like, you just can't make someone sad and then make them more sad and more sad and more sad. Like, unless you're doing it on purpose to evoke the opposite emotion, because eventually that's what will happen. Like, people will laugh. Yeah. It's like tragedy upon tragedy. It's like you can't keep going in the same direction. So it's that thing of contrast, you know?
Yeah.
You have to, like, sort of raise up and then fall. Like, things look like they're going well, and then they hit another wall. And that's a really good, really important thing, is to keep an eye on the sort of emotional, where the emotion is going.
On a journey and not kind of thing.
The same. Yeah, it's a journey. It's like an up and down kind of thing. Like, that's why, like, horror movies, I've thought, like, the humor in a good horror movie often works really well, even if the jokes are not that good, because you're ready for that release of tension, whether it's a loud noise that, you know, it can be cheesy, or some humor to sort of ease the moment, or even an action scene, like to sort of ease things and then prep you for more tension and fear. It's like...
Very good point. That's how you should do a classic horror, because when you do the other kind of horror where it just changes your perspective, and like something happens in your brain. Like, this is for me anyway, when I watch the other kind of horror that doesn't have that levity and it doesn't have that proper structure, then you just think, oh my god, the world is such a horrible place. I've got to watch something to cleanse my brain. Everything is grey and awful now. I'm just, you know, it's just horrible.
Yeah, all of the newer stuff is grim. It's very grim.
Yeah.
Oh, grim. And it's hard to watch. Or read, if you're a reader. I haven't read anything in decades, but you know, that's why I automatically say watch. even though we're talking about comics.
That's all we should do in this modern age. Films.
Exactly.
Web series. YouTube it, man.
Yeah.
Vivo. Or whatever. I don't Vimo. I don't know. Vine. What do the kids watch now? Facebook video? No.
Twister? Chirper? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So structure is important, and planning out the emotional revelations, because you can lose the audience so easily. And as you say, you just can't go on a continuous graph line. You have to have ups and downs and things along that journey.
I mean, and the same thing, like being funny after funny after funny, like the readers or audience just get tired. You can't keep doing it. You just get tired of the same. So you have to sort of have a little, unless it's a really short piece. If it's if there's only one emotion at play and one change at play, if it's a short story or a short comic, even a short video, then that's not a concern. But if it's stretched longer, then this really comes into play. Okay,
I didn't think
my
about
grammar is
comedy.
There has to be,
like, you have a story structure or something.
Well, there has to be something for a longer piece. Definitely for comedy. If it's a shorter piece, not a problem.
Yeah.
If it gets longer, you need something. You need a story. You need something. You need all those story elements. You need like a character we care about, who wants something that we understand.
Yeah.
And there's obstacles in the way. It's that whole thing, like whether it's a comedy, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it can't be superficial. Hammering away at one-liners is boring as crap. If you even a stand-up comedian that just does one-liners, that
exactly
died out in the 1970s. Even in the 1970s, that was old hat because
Mitch Hedberg talking about it.
No, well, Mitch Hedberg was
great.
Reinvented it though.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He's just the first one that comes to mind, or like even Stephen Wright, who I love. I mean, these are geniuses. That's why these guys come to mind. But
yeah, they're good examples.
You're right in concept. Yeah, like you're going to get tired after a while if it's just that.
Yeah, think about the old. They did their one-liners, but they did it on a theme. Like Stephen Wright does it on his depressed man theme, and Mitch Hedberg did it and his drugged out musing on the world theme. So they have a common thread through it, whereas the old style of one-liners was just, my wife, my mother-in-law, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you have a persona, like even Rodney Dangerfield, maybe the king. Oh, I tell you, it's rough out there.
Oh, good old Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, I love him.
We'll have to have him on the Quackhouse one of these days.
We'll get our people working on that.
Oh God. So yeah, even in comedy, you have to do it. So that makes me feel better about the comedy scenes I have in Pinky TA now. I used to think of those as being non sequiturs and like changing the mood too much, but now it seems I'm doing the right thing. I should do that, leavening the atmosphere. I just work by instinct when I do my work.
That is maybe a good way to do it, though, because you have the instinct of... You could often do it, and you have that... I don't know what the word would even be, but you have that sort of variety of emotion going on based on what you feel. You don't even know you're doing it sometimes. Yeah. You're just doing the right thing automatically, kind of thing.
Yeah, a very natural way of doing it, so it's not too planned out. I'd say, okay, I have to have comedy by page 28. This is the comedy page I've set aside. It's in the script. I have to have it.
Maybe someone could create that kind of a map, but as far as I know, that doesn't exist. You know, it's just sort of you have to look at it because sometimes the sadness or the tension or whatever is drawn out longer, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You know, you have to kind of feel it, have a sense of whatever pace your story is, and just kind of feel. And maybe there is no right answer in this, but just kind of feel if and when it needs a change.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, certain scenes or certain things sometimes do need to be drawn out, don't they? Sometimes it feels right, or you could work a bit more on this theme or into this like thing that's happening in the story. You could pad it out a bit more, or you need more space in order to really properly illustrate what is meant to be happening or to move to the next scene. So,
yeah, or to give the emotion the momentum it needs. You know, you've seen movies where like the changes are from one emotion to another are way too jarring. You know,
yeah,
huh? There's some really big. What was the series? American Horror Story. The seasons of the Witch.
all
the
right.
American Horror Story Coven had some very weird moments near the end, especially where, you know, something horrible would happen to one of the major characters, and they'd be kind of out of the picture, and it would be really kind of horrible, and you'd be feeling bad, and then it would instantly cut to sort of a funny, joyful scene.
Yeah.
And it was just, what? Wait, what? And it's just kind of like, you know, it's a misfire. It's like a misread of what your audience is feeling, and that they need a moment.
Yeah, not a good transition. So you suddenly change. You're giving people whiplash, aren't you? Emotional whiplash. You're not giving them a chance to feel and really identify with a scene. Which sometimes that's a very deliberate thing. You want to do that to shake people up and put them off balance, but sparingly. You know, you use that sparingly because evoking emotion and getting people to feel for your characters is a very important sort of story technique of getting people to identify with the work. So you don't want to give them whiplash too much, or they'll lose that identification and not not enjoy your story as much. So
for sure. I mean, emotions aren't logical, so sort of twists and turns and rapid things in the story on a logical level can be great, you know.
yeah.
But emotions are not really thinking things, so to sort of play that kind of game would be pretty tough unless you kind of know what you're doing or you have a really good sense of if people are engaged, then you kind of, you know, want to keep it that way. Yeah. You don't want to kind of rattle them out of it.
Yeah, it could be very counterproductive, and often is.
Yeah.
That's another great point.
There's talk of that in like the Star Wars, the Phantom Menace, or one of the Star Wars prequels, or all of them, I guess, probably.
You don't feel anything in any of those movies.
It's like, what's the emotion? Like, like you don't even know. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But just as important, you don't know like how you're supposed to feel. It's kind of like, is this supposed to be scary, or like, and then there's weird like comedy and stuff like that in the middle of a big fight, and it's like, what? You're just confused, you know?
Oh, very much. That's an excellent point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, The Phantom Menace is a very hard movie to get on board with, even from a childish point of view. People say, "Oh, it's a kids' movie," but it's not. It starts out with politics and trade wars and
it's confused. Yeah, it's just like, what? I mean, yeah, that's weird. That's a weird movie.
You meant to sympathize with a boy and his sick mum, but you don't care, and he's just poor old. Is it Haley? No, that was another actor, not Haley Joel Osment. That was Sixth Sense. Looks like him anyway. But the poor kid, you don't feel sympathy for him because he's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed sort of like typical American advertising kid, and
And he builds his own robots, and he like races around in the pod race, being silly, and he's like yippee, running around. Like, how are you supposed to feel bad for this guy? He seems like he's doing fine.
Yeah, God,
That's a whole other thing. I don't remember the movie very well, but
that's basically it.
they do stand out. Those moments do stand out. Yeah, I mean, and by the time the kid comes in, you don't even know, like, or at least I had no idea what was going on. I was half asleep by then, anyway.
Pretty much. Well, there's so many misfires. You have great big monsters in the start who are eating each other. Like, there's one gigantic monster going to eat the submarine they're in, and then another bigger monster comes and eats that monster, and then that's going to eat the submarine, and you should be feeling like fear for it and thrills.
Yeah.
And because there's just so many monsters, you just think, oh, whatever. This is just animation.
Yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. It's like overkill. The same as like repeating an emotion over and over. It's like if you're so inundated with all of this chaos, you kind of just tune out, right? You get numb to it. Exactly. So it's the opposite, emotion being evoked.
Yeah. That is how our brains work. If we get too much stimuli, it goes the other way. That's just how it works with everything. Yeah.
I thought in the newest Indiana Jones movie, which, I mean, I know that movie's 12 years old now already, but what I thought one of the problems with it was there weren't enough like diverse emotions. Whereas in all of the other ones, you have your funny scenes, your dramatic scenes, your exciting moments, scary moments.
Yeah, horrific moments.
Thrill of discovery. Yeah, some horror in some of them, yeah. Like you have every color of the rainbow. Repeat. in those movies. Whereas in the last one, I didn't really get that. Like, there was nothing that happened that was really... There was some, I guess, stuff that could be scary if you were buying into it. But the sense of wonder wasn't there. You didn't have, like, different scenes with strong, different emotions at different moments.
Yeah.
Other big problem with that, just as an aside, to me anyway, is that it didn't seem difficult for Indiana Jones. It didn't seem like he was challenged by what was going on. Physically difficult, whereas in all the other movies it seemed physically difficult. Harrison Ford's great at portraying that, but they didn't do it in the last movie. He seemed more superheroic.
Oh, right. He easily managed the things he was meant to do.
It kills the relatability. Like, you didn't care. I think maybe that was going on. I mean, I was just watching it and not feeling what I was supposed to be feeling. So I'm just trying to figure that. I was just trying to figure that out,
Yeah, I must see that
why?
one.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, because everyone said Sheila Booth was awful, so just got turned off by
it. Yeah, there's some good stuff in it, but overall, like, I didn't care. Like, and just on the subject of this Quackcast, like evoking emotion. Yeah. First of all, is like caring about what's going on.
Yeah, very much so. Why would you even watch a film to start with if you stopped caring about the character? Like,
yeah.
I stopped caring after the third films.
Third film was a great ending, actually.
Not for me. I got...
Oh, so you're saying... I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm out. Yeah.
When his dad comes in, that jumped the shark for me.
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that.
That was... Sean Connery basically doing his Highlander role. Being the mentor character again. Okay.
Dad, you're obsessed. I'm not obsessed. You're obsessed.
There can be only one.
The only one, Junior.
Oh god. But say let's take it back a bit. So for comics, how do we evoke these feelings that in a different way to film? In film, it can be a bit easier to do that. There's a lot of commonality in this visual storytelling media, I should say. But there's some things that you can't do. Like, you can't really set up pacing because in pacing in films is it's all linear. You've got a story on rails. People have to view it at the pace that you make it. But in comics, as you said before, the time is infinite. But we do have pacing in a way. I mean, we have like the width of gutters, the story that appears on a page, the layout of the panels as well. That paces out the story in a specific way. And I've found at times, say if I really want to like get a particular emotion on a page, I will put panels in a certain way. Like when I had the really angry scene in Bottomless Waitress, I do panels. I do a page with no panels, and everything flows into each other. So I could just do all the scenes and try and evoke what's happening without that cutoff of there to there to there. So the reader has to sort of follow the flow of what's happening.
It does kind of... that page was awesome, and it does force you to slow down as you're reading it.
Yeah.
To sort of look at what's happening. And then you kind of feel it. It has like a horror movie kind of... You have those tilted, those Dutch angles a little bit, if I'm remembering right. Like,
yeah,
things are on a slight angle, and you have like less detail sometimes, and it's just a lot of sort of visual things. I mean, that I'm looking into a little bit, but still haven't been able to use them yet. The book Framed Ink that we talked about a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, or several years ago. Framed Ink. This is in the early 70s we talked about Framed Ink. And if you remember, just get your parents to remind you. Amazing book, and I'm still working through it. And it's full of fantastic pictures, just black ink pictures, black and white, and they really grab you. Like, this guy really knows what he's doing, and he drew all the stuff in the book. And Dario Argento, I think his name is. No, that's not his name. But anyway, like the right kind of angle, or the ground's eye view, looking up, making certain things bigger and ominous in the frame, what you don't see, like what's outside of frame partially, and like shadow and lighting, and even the amount of detail in the background can force you to slow down and kind of take it all in. Like there's so much visually that can be done that is apparent to me in that book. Even single panels are like they grab emotionally just by how it's laid out, It's pretty incredible. So it definitely can be done.
That's awesome. I'm just looking at some of the images online, because if you just search for Framed Ink,
right,
it all comes up. It's all in Google, so you can see they are awesome. That's very good at evoking scenes. He's even done a hussar.
Oh, get out of here! Really?
Yeah. So that
right
makes
up your
it
alley.
even better. Yeah. I'll see if I can link that. I probably can't.
He does a little sequence where two people getting off a motorcycle and approaching a house. This like creepy house. And it's so well done, with no words, no sound effects, and obviously no music. But just where the camera goes and what it looks at, and the angle of the shots, how they're a little bit diagonal in certain shots. Really, it just sells the whole thing. It's very tense. And, again, not a single piece of dialogue even.
Yeah. Yeah, if you do it right, you don't need the dialogue. See, obviously, dialogue is the other big thing of evoking emotion. And, yeah, there's so much scope in there, because we all understand language, and language is incredibly symbolic. We do most of our, contrary to the old myth, we don't do 90% of our communication through body language. That's an urban myth. Most of our communication is actually done through speech and language, basically. Yeah. So yeah, there's a huge amount of emotion is conveyed that way. But in comics, of course, comics are visual writing as well as, you know, the speech bubbles. So they're both of those things happening together. So yeah, you've got to really master both if you really want to evoke the emotions that you want. Not only through like the shapes and perspectives and things, and that is a massive help. And you'll see that in film. Famous directors like Alfred Hitchcock, especially a master of that. And I suppose a lot of comic artists would have, you know, be using his example, but also through color, focus as well. So characters like in the foreground, extreme focus, extreme color, or dark lines, even just line work around characters can help in that regard. Thick line work, thin line work on others, speed lines in the backgrounds, you know, loss of backgrounds. So if you've got all sorts of backgrounds in your comic and suddenly you've got no background, you know, that can help to increase the emotional impact of what you're trying to display in that point in the story. So there's so many different techniques. It's
kind of boggling when you start trying to think about it. Yeah, it's kind of like, there's so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to think about that logically. It's best just to have those as like tools in your little comic tool bag, arrows in your quiver, and to be able to instinctively use them. You know, like say a martial artist will train to get the moves until they are instinctual, and then say if they ever go in a fight, they don't think about, I've got to throw a punch, I've got to do this block in order to counter that kick. They just automatically make those moves. So that's what you've got to do as a comic artist. You experiment a lot with these things, and when you do the work, you don't think about, okay, so what would evoke the emotion best here? This thing or this thing? You've just sort of got to feel it. And whichever way works best for you is the way you choose.
Right.
That's how I think you should do anyway.
I mean, to get to that point, right? But I mean, you have to sort of, to get to that point.
I don't know. So you work up to it. So you start out with a limited amount of techniques. And as you keep on going, you'll read comics by other people and you'll see that they're using those different things. And as you're doing the work yourself in later pages, that will come to your head. Hey, I saw this done in this sort of way. I feel like I'll do that here. Because this seems to be the appropriate point for that. It feels like a good time to do something that I saw that time. So it really... so you don't have to practice in order to do that like you do as a martial artist. You just have to remember what you've seen before and use it at the right time. I think that's the way. So,
I mean, to know how to do it, though, I'd say there's probably some practice involved. Or just doing it. Just doing stories.
Well, you know, skill... If it involves skill in order to do it, like, you know, different drawing techniques. But
sure.
If you've seen something and it's just thicker outlines around the character, you know? Or speed lines.
Like understanding the concepts is great, yeah.
So you've seen that, you've seen like someone use foreground blurs and a clear background image, something like that.
Yes.
Like, so that indicates like maybe a character's looking at the scene through blurred eyes because their eyes are full of tears. And how do you depict that? You know, and if you've seen that before, you think, that's how I could do this thing. So you don't have to practice in order to be able to do that. Just sort of, you know, think in your mind, that's the right time that I should try this. You know? That's...
Yeah.
Because you don't do practice comics. You practice as you work. That's
right.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Unless you do. I don't know who does that. got a whole notepad full of it. I suppose you do if you're doing like the rough versions of pages. You'll sketch it one way and then you'll sketch it another. You think, oh no, this scene should be depicted that way, or maybe 4 panels should be devoted to, in order to really evoke this emotion or this scene that I'm trying to depict. Oh no, it should be 3. You have that kind of process, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing thumbnails, like rather than sort of going through a logical, like kind of a clumsy logical process, like you're kind of doing thumbnails and you get to see how it feels to look at those super rough drawings. And yeah, maybe that makes more sense to...
Yeah, well, we'll have different ways of doing that kind of thing. So...
It's interesting. How much blackness, is in your... That's what I noticed about this, the guy who did Framed Ink, like, the amount of blackness, sometimes it's extreme, and you just see a ton, and then the perspective lines are directed at what you're supposed to be looking at. That's somewhat connected to emotion. Maybe it completely is, like, yeah, it's very interesting how it pulls your eye around. Setting a character lower in a frame makes them seem lesser. It just all adds to you like feeling what you're supposed to feel. I do think you're right that it's kind of intuitive more than reading a list.
It is, because it's very hard to apply these things in a logical way to think, okay, now I should do this and I should do that and I should do this, especially if you're doing a comic page. Because you're doing so many of these damn panels that if you work that way, then you'd be taking as long as I do to do a page.
Hey, you're doing good stuff.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. It takes 7 years to do a page.
But you know what I mean? It'd take forever in order to apply these things in an intellectual way. So it has to be a more... You have to feel it, I think. And I'm not saying that in a wanky way. Oh yes, you have to feel it, my son. You can't do it from the head. It has to be from the heart.
But if you're just thinking in terms of like a story is an emotional thing primarily, right?
Yeah.
Just start thinking about, instead of just having I guess I'm talking for me and artists like who are like me or whatever, maybe a more simple approach. Instead of like sticking to talking heads, medium shot, to open it up a little more and saying like, okay, well, this is supposed to be, we're supposed to be focused on this character and it's supposed to be tense and we don't know what the other character is thinking, or if there's some kind of context like that. Like, just to have that little bit of awareness of what you're going for, and to get outside the box a little bit of the talking head thing.
Yeah, it can be an impetus to get out of that and to do something a bit different and more creative, I suppose, would be a way of saying it. Yeah.
What about bad ways to do it?
Bad ways
to evoke emotion.
Well, if you're only doing it through text, that's limiting. As we were saying before, language is our main way we communicate. But in a comics are visual media as well as a written media. So you've got to do both those things. If your characters are being super emotional, and as you say, they're just talking heads on a page, then there's only going to be a very limited amount of emotion that they can generate from the speech alone and their expressions. So some attempt at body language and, darkening panels, not even colour. It could just be making the colour darker, like all black or whatever, the way this Framed Ink guy does it, can really help massively to influence your emotional response to it. But if it's just talking heads and it's all done through the dialogue, then that's bad.
It can be. I mean, it can sort of work, but yeah, it's definitely the images are there to really like make that emotion work.
if you have the dialogue doing it alone, then it's limited, because in a comic you haven't got the space to do what you can in a book. You can't fill that page with as much text as you can in a book. So the dialogue you have is very limited in order to be able to do that. So you have to do that with the rest of the space, which is taken up with images, and that's why you have images there. So you don't have to write all the descriptions and all the in-between stuff, and this character's thinking that, because you draw it out. So these things have to work together. So, that would be, in my mind anyway, would be a poorer way of doing it. So.
The worst way I can think of offhand, and I've done this, I'm not happy about it, but I've done it, is to have characters announce their emotions. I'm scared. Or to have captions like saying, and this applies to writing prose also, I guess, to actually say, like, this was, like, he walked sadly, or the scary shadow appeared from, like, to actually say what the emotion is.
I'm scared. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I've literally done that.
No.
Like, it's a shortcut, but it's horrible. Really, I can't imagine that really works on its own unless, like, with the context of your story or with the context of people caring about your character and understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's okay. You gotta get there. It's a bit of a cheat,
Yeah, it is. It is. You have to
not really powerful.
You have to evoke those things, I think, not ever explain them. That has to be something that the readers work out without being told.
It's not going to be as powerful if you use the crutch. I mean, maybe sometimes the crutch does work, like, does the job, maybe, but definitely not as well as actually,
Yeah, well, you might have to do that if you've tried to go the other way. You've tried to evoke it, and the readers still don't know. They can't quite work it out.
That's why, like, that's on the other side of it. Like, people have to some degree, like, maybe there's lots of unanswered questions or ambiguity, but people have to kind of understand what's going on, in a story. It's just like, it's tough. It's hard to do, so.
Yeah, there is definitely a balance, but I lean to more towards trying to evoke it with the images and the colors and everything else, rather than actually having them say that.
Of course, yeah, for sure. Sometimes you just you need everyone to know that she's sad.
Let's be all on the same page here.
Let's get on the same page, literally and figuratively.
Oh God, yeah. Well, as I keep saying, we communicate through language, so, and not everybody uses the same visual language. I mean, not everyone uses the same written language either, but that's easy to understand than the visual shortcuts. I mean, we could be like the Japanese, the way they evoke emotions. Characters, when they're frustrated, will have the little stylized vein on their head, which will turn out into this little stylized vein off their head onto the panel somewhere else. And then the panel
like
gets...
a teardrop will fall from outside.
Yeah. Panel gets filled up with stylized veins, the little hash symbols. Yeah, or the big teardrop, which shows embarrassment. That's meant to show frustration / embarrassment kind of thing. The little mushroom...
The little ghost flying out of the mouth? What is that supposed to be? The little ghost flying out of the mouth?
It's like a mushroom kind of shape. And that's it's a sigh of frustration as well. So...
Right.
Which those things are specific to Japanese comics. Some Western people have tried to lump those in because, we are slowly becoming indoctrinated to that visual media, and we still have trouble with it. But you do see that coming into some Western comics, web comics mainly. Yeah,
right. Yeah, a lot of webcomic people are big anime and manga fans and stuff, right?
They are.
Yeah.
So those are really...
That's an understatement. Yeah.
Those are really good shortcuts for getting people on board with the emotions that those characters are meant to be feeling.
Sure.
Those are common things, but we don't have equivalent to those in Western comics, do we?
Not exactly, but we do have, like, for shock, you have the 3 lines coming out of the character's head.
Yeah, okay.
You'll have those emphasis, those intensity lines. I'm sure you've seen that. It can be done as a background or just 3 sort of diagonal, different angled lines coming out beside the character's head. You have like the little shake lines. If someone is stunned or reacting to something,
yeah,
you know what I mean. Then you have sort of exaggeration, like eyebrows popping off of the head or like eyeballs popping out.
Eyes
and that's
bugging
really,
out.
I don't know if that's evoking emotion in the reader as much as it's, just exaggerating the characters.
Well, it's showing you what the characters are feeling.
Yeah.
The line from the eye to someone else, which shoot daggers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good ones, but yeah, not for serious works. But then again, the anime ones aren't. Well, the manga ones, I should say, aren't for serious works either. So, well, you can be in more funny moments, yeah. But yeah, for more serious stuff, you're limited to those things that we already mentioned, like shadow and shape and perspective and relationship of shapes in a panel to each other. Panel shape as well can do it.
Yeah,
I sort of hinted on that before, so with layout, but panel shapes as well. That
definitely
can be a very powerful tool. Splash
That's
panels.
the way you can get pacing going, right? Like you can have something that feels really quick.
Yeah.
Quick transitions. You've done it. Pitface does it in Putrid Meat and stuff, like where it pulls you quickly through a lot of panels. Then you can have like sort of bigger, wider panels that sort of make you slow down, make you feel different, feel a different, emotion.
Yeah, heaps of detail in a panel, which just forces you to look here and there and there and there and there. Pitface specializes in that.
I like her. She does those angled kind of panel dividers. I've copied that a little bit since noticing that she does that, because it seems to work. It makes everything kind of seem more. It just kind of like heightens everything, or makes it seem more exciting. You'll have slightly off-kilter panels, even if the characters are not. And maybe sometimes the characters are off-kilter. I got to study them more. But you have crooked panels, and
yeah, she does that.
Slightly off-kilter, and it really works.
It does. It gets away from the square, standard boxes that a lot of us get caught up into. I hate that I get caught up in it, but I do all the time.
Me too. 5 years of that, nothing but that.
I loved my last page until I realized, damn, it's all square boxes and it's just straight on perspectives and people are like parallel to the panel lines. Oh God, it's boring as crap.
Yeah, overkill the other way, like we were saying earlier, that would be boring too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Break it up.
It's a bit. If everything's too crazy, there's nothing to settle on. But
yeah, it's like all those Star Wars monsters you were talking
about. One after the other. Oh God, that was such a failure. Those are great movies to watch in order to see how to do everything differently.
Wrong.
Yeah. How to see just how wrong you can do something in every single way. Oh, very valuable. And I was going to say, and read Pinky TA to see how to do everything right, but no, I can't be arrogant enough to say that, because I know I've made far too many Lucasian mistakes in to ever.
Oh,
to
probably
ever say
constantly,
that.
every day, constantly. Like George Lucas would look at me and laugh.
Yeah.
What?
Precisely.
That's right.
I wish I could do George Lucas's Phantom Menace. I wish I could do that well.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, I'm barely like Rob Liefeld.
Tangerine does great, like sort of backgrounds that pulls you in and makes it feel realistic.
Well, she really mastered the whole thing about evoking a reader's emotions when she did her page where the child bashes another child's head in.
Oh man,
And that is a shocking page. You read that and you think, oh my God, what have I read? This is just... Oh, Jesus. She's like the queen. She should have been on this Quackcast because she would have won.
that's right. Yeah, she's very good. Yeah, very good at it.
She gets the Oscar, the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
Champion. I declare Tance the winner of this Quackcast.
Oh, look at that. She's like the person who wins the Oscar and didn't even come to the thing.
I'll accept her prize in absentia, so I still win.
Very smooth. You're very, very good.
Planned it out from the beginning, man.
You're very clever. All right, man.
Yeah, I think we've done about an hour on this, and this has been a very fantastic podcast. I think a good topic, Baines. Baines thought of this topic, people. This is Baines's brainchild.
Yes, the idea of evoking emotions in stories. I made that up.
Your brain
Welcome,
baby.
everybody.
Yeah. Now pay him royalties.
Only your stories have emotions in them.
Oh, not many do. God knows. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Old emotion. There's our theme.
There's our thing. Thank you guys for listening to Quackcast 287. I've been Ozone Ocean.
And I've been Baines.
Emotionally yours. All right, bye.
Emotion in motion. A magical potion. Goodbye.